The road group set market has been dominated by three main manufacturers over the last few years. Campagnolo, who of course pretty much invented the gear, Shimano and SRAM. More recently, Rotor have come along with their offering of a hydraulic group set, but this is the latest one, and it comes from Full Speed Ahead, or FSA, and it's electronic, and it's called the KForce WE. The WE part of KForce WE stands for wireless electronic, and the engineers here at FSA have described this to me as like a hybrid wireless. So unlike SRAM ETAP, it's not completely wireless, but unlike Shimano or Campag, it's also not completely wired. I'll explain that in just a few moments' time. The main hub of this group set is the front derailleur here. Now it communicates with the shifters up at the front via ANT encrypted technology, but it communicates with the rear derailleur via a wire which travels through the centre of the chainstay at the back. Now what that means is that from this point forwards on the bike, there are no wires at all to do with the gears. So that will make maintenance or replacement, etc. a hell of a lot easier, especially if you're using a time trial bike or an aero frame set. So let's take a look at the carbon levers here at the front. FSA are going to make these available in two different lengths, which will vary by 6mm. And for both of those lengths, you will be able to vary the reach adjustability with 3 different positions. So that means that almost every hand size should be accommodated. And that makes perfect sense. After all, pretty much everything else that we have on our bikes is available in different sizes to suit our own personal body shape and size. And to do it, all you'll have to do is turn a screw, which is located inside the rubber hoods. In terms of the shifter part itself, it's a kind of rocker paddle style system, and it means that there's quite a distance between one button and the other, which should mean that even in the depths of winter, when you've got big thick gloves on, you don't accidentally shift in the wrong direction. And incidentally, you will be able to customise how your shifters shift, i.e. which one, the right or the left, accesses the front or the rear derailleur, and also which button moves the derailleur in which direction. Inside both of the shifters is a CR2032 battery, and FSA have placed particular emphasis on making sure that battery life is as long as it possibly can be. So apparently they will both last around about a year, depending on how much you ride your bike and also on your own personal shifting habits. Now the good news is that even when they do finally need replacing, you'll be able to do it yourself, no need to take it down to a shop. And the CR2032 battery is pretty common, so you'll easily be able to source it down at a local shop. And incidentally, you'll be able to see your remaining battery life in one of two ways. Firstly, every time you shift, a light will come by the set button on the front derailleur. Blue means that it's almost fully charged. It will then go down to green, then yellow, and then red, which is an indication that you'll shortly need to replace the batteries at the shifters. Alternatively, you can link it up to FSA software, and it will give you an exact number of shifts that you have remaining before your battery has worn out. The main battery though is located here inside the seat post, and it's a similar size and shape to Shimano's offering, with a lifespan of between 3,000 and 5,000 kilometers roughly, again depending on your own personal shifting habits and also presumably how fast you actually ride your bike. Interestingly, FSA are considering making a time trial specific battery which would be smaller and therefore lighter. And again, it seems like a sensible idea given that you don't need the same battery lifespan in general for a time trial. So from the main battery there is a cable which runs down the seat tube here and connects to the front derailleur. And as I said before, from the front derailleur is another cable which runs down the chainstay here to the rear derailleur. And in order to charge that main battery, all you need to do is take this cable out of the rear derailleur and plug in your charging cable. And FSA have designed a rather neat locking system where the cables enter the derailleurs. So what that means is when you put them in, you turn this screw and you then can't pull them back out again until you unscrew it. And what this means is that they can't rattle loose when you're riding down a rough road. Whilst we're down at the rear derailleur, actually, we should take a closer look at it. It's unlike anything else currently on the market in that it's not a traditional parallelogram design. Now, the chief designer of the group set, Alfredo, has been trying to explain to me the ins and outs of this design, but like many things, it was slightly too much for my brain. But what I do understand is that the movement is very similar to what you'll find in lots of robots. So we'll see how that feels out on our first ride, which we're going to do shortly. The current cage will accommodate all cassettes up to an 11 through to 28. But once again, FSA are working on a cage which will accommodate everything from an 11 to 25 up through to an 11 to 32. Reason being that very few people these days are going to choose to use an 11 to 23. Now the group set which we have on the bike here is a fairly traditional 2x11, i.e. 2 chain rings at the front and 11 sprockets here at the rear cassette. Although FSA do once again tell us that they are thinking about working on a 1x11, although presumably that would mean a fairly big redesign since the front derailleur is so central to the workings of this group set. And it is an entire group set. It's not just the shifters and the derailleurs. It's their own crankset, their own chain rings, their own cassette, and also their own new redesigned brake calipers as well, which we'll go into in a few moments' time. You will be able to make both individual shifts but also multiple shifts by holding down the relevant shifting button to go down multiple gears in one go. And FSA have deliberately incorporated a slight delay in this so that you don't accidentally shift 2 gears when you only meant to do 1. And you will be able to do the indexing of these gears at home. All you need to do is put your chain on the 6th sprocket and then hold down the set button on the front derailleur. At this point, your rear shifter will turn into a micro shifter. And what they recommend is that you move your rear derailleur up the cassette until you hear a clicking noise when you're pedaling, and then click the downshift 4 times. Then, as soon as you press your front shifter, that rear shifter will then micro shift the front derailleur. In this case, what they recommend is that when you're in the big ring, there's about 1 millimetre between the chain and the outside of the cage. And when you're in the small ring, there's about 1 millimetre between the chain and the inside of the cage. Once you've made that adjustment, the inbuilt trimming will take care of the rest of it for you when your chain is in the extremes on the rear cassette at the top or the bottom. And I think that is pretty much it in terms of the actual electronic part of the group set. But as I said, there have been some redesigns elsewhere too. So let's talk a little bit about the cranks. They are slightly thinner and that's given them a slightly lower Q factor. They've also changed the shape where the mount of the chain rings goes onto the cranks themselves. And they say that this helps with stiffness and also with accuracy of power meters, which are mounted as well. And then it's the brakes, which involves moving the bike around. So what's changed with them? Well, on this bike we have the dual pivot design and a direct mount design will also be available. And the redesign has given them more stopping power as well as accommodating slightly wider rims, which are of course becoming increasingly popular on modern bikes. In order to drop your wheel out either at the front or back, you simply release the brake with this fairly simple button here. Now, I'm sure many of you are wondering when disc brakes are going to be in the offing. It is something that they are working on at the moment, and since they already provide disc brakes to the mountain bike world, it's probably not going to take them all that long. And finally, you may well have noticed that alongside the set button on the front derailleur, there is also a power button. Very easy way of completely turning off all the electronics. And this is pretty good if you're traveling, because what it will do is prevent the wearing down of your batteries through accidental shifting. Say, for example, something's pressing up against one of your shifters whilst it's in your bike bag or in your car. So there you have it. I am also in the fortunate position of being able to take this out for a spin fairly shortly, so make sure you keep your eyes peeled for that video because it will be out very soon. In the meantime, if you would like to see our entire tech playlist, you can find that by clicking up in the top corner there, or if you've missed the latest episode of the GCN Show, that is in the bottom corner down there. And if you are yet to subscribe to the channel, it is free. All you've got to do is click on the red and white globe.